Hey everybody, welcome back to the Michael Lofton Show here on Reason and Theology. Wow, a lot of stuff coming out. Quite a few reports that are coming out in Catholic news that we should certainly take a look at in the trial with Cardinal Becciu. He was just found guilty in a Vatican court. We're going to briefly talk about that, as well as the situation with Rupnik. Not only has Pope Francis reopened an investigation and review of his case, um, but also a Loyola Community co-founded by Rupnik is now being ordered to be closed by the Vatican, as well as some other good news from the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, who decided recently to once again reassert the fact that abortion remains our preeminent priority and their preeminent priority in combating the threat of abortion. So we're going to take a look at all of this. But before we do so, let me just remind you, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Help me grow this channel so that I can reach more people with the content that you appreciate here at Reason and Theology. So go ahead and do that, and also hit the like button while you're at it. I'll wait for you to do it. All right, let's let's get to the first report here. I'm going to share my screen. Let's take a look at National Catholic Register. Breaking: Vatican court convicts Cardinal Becciu, sentences him to 5 years in jail for embezzling funds. You probably remember where I was covering this a while back in a video that I did called Busted: Secret Recording of Pope Francis Heard by Court. I put a link to it in the show notes. You're welcome to go and check it out. But yeah, even in that video, which was done, November 26, 2022, this court case was still going on then, and Cardinal Becciu had secretly recorded Pope Francis in an attempt to exonerate him from the accusation of embezzlement, and didn't work. I think that ended up backfiring on him and vindicated Pope Francis, but it did show some disturbing problems with Cardinal Becciu, so we could kind of tell, yeah, this doesn't look good for him, and I think we know the outcome. I bet you the Cardinal Becciu is going to be guilty, and here it is. So, Vatican court convicts Becciu, sentences him to 5 years in jail for embezzling funds. Pope Francis is cleaning house. The historic trial centered on what happened in and around the Secretariat of State's 350 million euro purchase of an investment property in London between 2014 and 2018. Judges delivered a verdict in the Vatican's financial corruption trial on Saturday, sentencing Cardinal Becciu to more than 5 years in prison and convicting 5 other defendants. So it's not just him who was guilty here, but a few others as well. Cardinal Becciu, the Pope's former chief of staff, is the highest-ranking Vatican official to ever face a trial in the Vatican's criminal court. So this is historic. We've obviously had Vatican trials before, but this guy is the highest to ever be tried and now convicted in a Vatican court. Pope Francis is very clearly intent here on cleaning house in the Vatican, and I welcome that. The 75-year-old Italian cardinal was found guilty of several counts of embezzlement. The cardinal was sentenced to 5.5 years in prison, a permanent disqualification from holding public office, and a fine to more than equal to more than 8,000 euro. The Vatican Court's president, Giuseppe Pignatone, read aloud the verdict on December 16th in the culmination of the nearly 2.5-year-long saga of the Vatican's trial of the century, which sat for 86 sessions. It was a long one. They had to go through so much information, so many documents, so many witnesses. I think there were almost 70 witnesses, if I recall correctly. Looking into the details, it's incredible. That's why it's taken so long. Cardinal Becciu's lawyer, Viglione, told journalists on Saturday that the cardinal will certainly appeal the ruling. Yeah, I don't think that one's going to go anywhere. 5 other defendants were also sentenced to jail time, including Fabrizio Tirabassi, a former Vatican employee, and Enrico Crasso, a financial consultant for the Vatican, who were each given 7 years in prison. Monsignor Carlino, a formal official in the Vatican Secretariat of State, was acquitted in the trial. 2 other defendants received fines of less than 2,000 and received a suspended sentence for 1 year and 10 months, and one was acquitted. The historic trial centered on what happened in and around the Secretariat of State's 350 million euro purchase of an investment property in London between 24 and 2018. Y'all probably remember reports of this back then. We were kind of scandalized by some of this stuff, and yeah, here it is. I mean, it took a while to rein this stuff in and get a conviction, but here we are. The Vatican maintained that the deal was problematic and designed to defraud the Secretary of State, the powerful curial department at the center of the investigation of financial malfeasance of millions of euros. The defendants in the trial were adamant that their actions were above board and the Vatican authorities were in the know. Cardinal Becciu, who used to work as a second-ranking official in the Vatican Secretariat of State, was charged with embezzlement, abuse of office, conspiracy, and witness tampering. Prosecutors asked for a prison sentence of 7 years and 3 months and a fine of 10,000 euros and a ban from holding office. The cardinal has always denied all wrongdoing and claimed the financial deal was managed by a successor at the Secretariat of State, Archbishop Parra. Others involved also claimed that there was no criminal liability in what took place, or they pointed the blame at parties whose names came up in the investigation who were never charged, or they deflected and pointed the blame at Pope Francis like Cardinal Becciu did. Defense lawyers were critical of the Vatican's investigation and trial, calling it chaotic and lacking in respect for human rights and due process. One lawyer called for a mistrial. Many of the 10 defendants who maintained their innocence throughout the trial will likely lodge appeals. So this may not be the final word in a trial that has seen a cardinal tried by lay judges for the first time. But also, what does that tell you? That it's only under Pope Francis where you see somebody this high up being convicted in a Vatican court. Are we really to believe there were really no other opportunities in previous pontificates? I don't know. I don't know. But it is interesting that it's happening under Pope Francis. Okay. So, in other news, let's take a look at what's going on with the Father Rupnik case. You'll recall, again, Pope Francis recently requested a review of the Rupnik case. Let me just briefly read this to you from Vatican News. Pope Francis lifts the statute of limitations in the case of Father Marco Rupnik to allow a canonical procedure to take place regarding allegations against the former Jesuit. All kinds of problematic stuff surrounding him. And there were a lot of people who were upset when he was recently incarnated in a diocese. And days after that, Pope Francis lifted the statute of limitations and said, nope, y'all need to look back into this guy's case. Pope Francis has asked the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith to review the case of former Jesuit artist Rupnik, Father Rupnik, who was accused of psychological and sexual abuse by some consecrated women with whom he worked. He was also expelled from the Society of Jesus in June. A Holy See press office statement on Friday said in September, the Pontifical Commission for the Protection of Minors brought to the Pope's attention that there were serious problems in the handling of the Father Marco Rupnik case and a lack of outreach to victims. So when this was brought to Pope Francis's attention, he said, okay, no, we need to look further into this. You don't get to just go hide out into a diocese and get incarnated, and we're not just going to sweep this under the rug. We are going to look further into this because it seems that there could be a very serious issue here, and obviously there is. Consequently, it added, the Holy Father asked the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith to review the case and decided to lift the statute of limitations to allow a process to take place, which that's going to be interesting under this is going to be obviously headed by Fernandez, who's been doing a great job in responding to all kinds of dubia. Now, obviously, he's not going to be very hands-on in this part, as Pope Francis even noted. He's more into the doctrine and stuff like that, but Seeing how efficient he has been running the dicastery for the doctrine of the faith, I'm confident something's going to be done here. So the Pope is firmly convinced that if there is one thing that the church must learn from the synod, it is to listen attentively and compassionately to those who are suffering, especially those who feel marginalized from the church, the statement said. So, in other words, people who were abused, who say, hey, he shouldn't be getting away with this. We need to be listening to those. And Pope Francis agrees. It says yes. And so we need to open this thing back up. Later on Friday, the Pontifical Commission for the Protection of Minors released a statement welcoming the Pope's decision at the Synod. As the Synod comes to a close, we repeat the important role that a culture of safeguarding should play in any theology of ministry, leadership, or worship. The core of the Church's mandate is to render everyone safe, to protect the vulnerable from whatever threatens them, and to leave them to the fullness of life known through God's own promises, said the Pontifical Commission statement. And so the Pope is trying to right the ship here. He is doing what he can to further address this issue and not allow people to just kind of sweep it under the rug. And so, people were just kind of throwing Pope Francis under the bus and say, why isn't he doing anything? Well, there you go. He's certainly doing something about it. Not only that, but then you see him addressing this other community here, a community co-founded by Father Rupnik. It is being ordered to close by the Vatican. So here is National Catholic Register on it, breaking Vatican closing down Loyola Community, co-founded by Father Rupnik. According to the December 15th statement, the dissolution of the community must take place within 1 year. The Vatican has decided to shut down the religious community of sisters co-founded by accused abuser, Father Marko Rupnik. The Slovenian Archdiocese of Ljubljana announced Friday. Yeah, I'm sure I butchered it. Sisters from the Loyola community were presented with a decree on December 14th from the Vatican Dicastery for Institutes of Consecrated Life and Societies of Apostolic Life on the dissolution of their community due to serious problems concerning the exercise of authority and the way of living together. That's kind of at the heart of the problem here, according to the Archdiocese. According to the December 15th statement, the dissolution of the community must take place within 1 year. The Vatican decree ordering the dissolution of the Loyola community was issued on October 20th. And before we continue, again, I do want to remind y'all, hit that subscribe button. Help me grow this channel. Now, it says Father Rupnik co-founded the Loyola community with Sister Ivanka Hosta in Slovenia more than 3 decades ago. The priest of Mosaic Artist was removed from the Jesuits in June after having been accused of spiritual, psychological, and sexual abuse of religious sisters. Yet the Slovenian Diocese of Koper confirmed on October 15th that Father Rupnik was incarnated there at the end of August for priestly ministry, a revelation that sparked a public outcry and shocked Rupnik's alleged victims. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course. Who in their right mind would think, oh, yeah, this is a good idea. Let's just go ahead and incarnate them here and we'll sweep this thing on the rug and pretend it never happened. Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't work anymore. If you haven't figured that out, for those who are still trying to take this approach, yeah, that doesn't work. No. Social media is too large. You're going to be held accountable. It's not just going to go away. Those days are over. Since then, the Vatican has announced that Father Rupnik will face a canonical process over the abuse allegations after Pope Francis decided to waive the statute of limitations on the claim. So he waived the statute of limitations and said, no, we're going to look more into this because y'all didn't do a good enough job the first time. So in other words, when the problem was brought to his attention, he did something about it. It continues. According to one alleged Italian victim, Father Rupnik guided her to enter the Loyola community in Slovenia, demanding absolute availability and obedience, isolating her from her family and friends at a time when he was physically and spiritually abusing her. Yeah, this community needs to go. Father Marco had openly started the duress to duress other sisters in the community with the usual psycho-spiritual strategies he had already used with me, with the goal of having sex with as many women as possible, the former Loyola sister told the Italian media outlet Domini in December 2022. At the beginning of the 1990s, there were 41 sisters, and from what I know, Father Rupnik managed to abuse almost 20, she said. Father Rupnik acted as the Loyola community's chaplain until he dramatically broke from the religious community in September 1993. Several sisters left the community with Father Rupnik, following him to Rome, where he subsequently opened his art and theological school, the Aletti Center. I suspect that one's going to be investigated soon. The priest artist has also been accused of engaging in sex acts with consecrated women at the center. Yeah, we need some investigations there. Sister Hosa acted as the superior general of the Loyola community from 94 to 2023. She was quietly removed from the governance of the community in June by a decree sent by Rome Auxiliary Bishop Daniele Labanori. The former religious superior was ordered to not have any contact with current or past members of the Loyola community for 3 years, and as an external penance, to make a monthly pilgrimage for 1 year to a Marian shrine to pray for the victims of Father Marco Ivan Rupnik's behavior and for all the religious of the Loyola community whom she is accused of harming. The bishop first uncovered allegations of Father Rupnik's sexual abuse and spiritual abuse of religious sisters when he was sent to investigate the Loyola community in Slovenia amidst complaints about Hosta. According to the statements from the Archdiocese, the Archbishop asked for a visitation of the Loyola community in 2019 and informed the Vatican Dicastery for Consecrated Life of the results in 2020. Because the Loyola community had its general house in Rome, the Vatican Dicastery handled the matter over the Diocese of Rome, who sent a commissioner to speak with the sisters and sent a final report to the Dicastery in September 2022 through the Apostolic Nunciature. Diocese of Rome issued a report on its investigation of Rupnik's Aletti Center in September, concluding that the center had a healthy community life that is free of particular serious issues, a statement that drew bewilderment from victims of Rupnik's alleged superior and sexual abuse. Again, like I said, I think we need to look more into this Aletti Center. Order an investigation. Excuse me. Another one, at least. So, yeah, something is not adding up here with how this was handled previously. And looks like Pope Francis is doing something about it. So that's good news. Now, this is being brought up recently where the USCCB has once again reaffirmed its commitment to its document, Forming Consciences for Faithful Citizenship, introductory note of 2019 document, where it once again reaffirms the preeminent priority of addressing the threat of abortion. So the USCCB once again is saying, look, the main threat that we really need to give priority to addressing is abortion. Here's what the paragraph says. Some might be tempted to say, yes, of course, we will be the ones who help by promoting good and opposing evil. But when confronted with so much good at risk and so much evil, it is a great challenge to avoid fear and anger. The threat of abortion remains our preeminent priority because it directly attacks our most vulnerable and voiceless brothers and sisters and destroys more than 1 million lives per year in our country alone. Mic drop. Other grave threats to life and dignity of human person include euthanasia, gun violence, terrorism, the death penalty, and human trafficking. There's also the redefinition of marriage and gender, threats to religious freedom at home and abroad, lack of justice for the poor, the suffering of migrants, refugees, wars, and famines around the world, racism, the need for greater access to healthcare and education, care for our common home, and more. All threaten the dignity of human life. And we can address all of these problems simultaneously. We don't have to exclude any one issue. We can address them all while recognizing that the preeminent priority is first and foremost to the threat of abortion. And I'm happy that they reaffirmed this once again. I think that's the right approach. Address the whole, address all these issues, but yes, recognize abortion is the preeminent priority, addressing that threat. Okay, so glad to see this stuff. Like I said, a whole flurry of news reports are coming out where we're seeing some good news, and the Vatican is really cleaning house. Have you noticed again under Fernandez since July? Pope Francis has been addressing many different dubia questions submitted to Rome and reaffirming the faith and upholding the tradition of the church and doing just a really good job with his right hand man, Cardinal Fernandez, and then simultaneously addressing these other issues with Cardinal Becciu and Father Rupnik. Glad to see it, and I look forward to seeing more because there is more work that needs to be done. He's also addressing the German bishops. Been glad to see that, and I've been covering that lately. He's been addressing them and is going to continue to do so, and so happy to see that as well. And so for all those people out there saying, well, what is Pope Francis doing about this? What is Pope Francis doing about that? Well, there's actually plenty that he's doing. You just don't hear these being as reported as often as, false accusations, fake news, stuff like that. I do want to point y'all to the playlist that I have created, Making Sense of the Crisis in the Catholic Church. I'll put a link to it in the show notes where I cover a lot of this stuff, that has been going on in the news. What is Pope Francis doing about this? What is he doing about that? But what about this? But what about Pachamama? What about blah, 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 blah. I have addressed over 330 videos in that playlist. I've addressed so many of those claims there, so you'll want to start there. Hopefully that will point you in the right direction and get you on the right track, and you'll see that all kinds of stuff is being addressed, and there's also all kinds of responses to a lot of the fake news that's out there. So hey, hit that subscribe button, help me grow this channel. If you appreciated this video, if you like what you saw here from Reason and Theology, if you've benefited from Reason and Theology, hit that subscribe button. And if you've already done that, and again, you've benefited from Reason and Theology, support the channel at patreon.com/Reason and Theology. And you'll also get access to extra content that I give to patrons only. So exclusive content that I only create for patrons. I've been doing multiple of these videos per week now. And so if you want to get some more inside information, certainly check that out. And that will, like I said, support this ministry here at Reason and Theology, so this stuff can continue to reach people and help them navigate this difficult situation in the Catholic Church. All right. So, okay, that's going to do it. Hit that subscribe button. We'll see you later. God bless.
Are you a Catholic thinking about converting to Eastern Orthodoxy? Or are you a Protestant discerning whether or not to become Catholic or Eastern Orthodox? If so, I have the book just for you. It's called Answering Orthodoxy, and engages all of the arguments that Eastern Orthodox use against the Catholic Church. I respond to all of them. I show that they are in error, and in fact, they're inconsistent, because the things that Orthodox are objecting to are in fact found in their own tradition. So the fullness of the faith can only be found in the Catholic Church. Check out the book right now at shop.catholic.com for your copy today.
Are you confused about how Catholic teaching authority works? With encyclicals, papal bulls, councils, and many other things, it's easy to get confused on what is authoritative and what is not. Fortunately, at MaximusInstitute.com, I have prepared a course explaining the magisterium from A to Z. Visit the website and check out the course Understanding the Magisterium for more information.